Good evening, good folks, and welcome to this Monday, February 13th work session of the City of Muskegon City Commission. Now, before we proceed, I just want to let everyone know we don't have a public comment at the beginning of our work sessions, but we do have public comment reserved at the end of the meeting on any item, whether it's agenda item tonight, agenda item tomorrow, any other topic you want to discuss. You'll have up to 3 minutes to speak during public comment. If you wish to speak at the end of our meeting, there's public comment forms at the back of the room. Please complete that and share that with our clerk. When it's time for public comment, I will acknowledge you. Will not announce your address, nor will I ask you to share your home address, but we do need it on that file for our records, and I'll just acknowledge what neighborhood or city you may be joining us from. So that we may begin with our business. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Hood,
Here.
Commissioner Ramsey, absent. Vice Mayor German,
Here.
Commissioner Gorman,
Here.
Commissioner Emery,
Here.
Commissioner St. Clair,
Here.
Mayor Johnson.
Here. Thank you. All right. First item under new business, we have Police Canine Unit Proposal. Welcome, Chief Kozel.
Evening. I think you have a copy of the updated packet in front of you, but the packet was sent out. Hopefully you had a little bit of time to peruse the packet for the canine proposal. When I first arrived here, started meeting with everybody in the departments and had a great meeting with Sergeant Boyfisel. She's very trained in canines, and I was unaware that we didn't have any canines here within the City of Muskegon Police Department. We used to, I guess, a while ago. I mean, remember, Commissioner, probably can remember. But with the type of call volume we have, with the type of calls that we respond to, as you can see in your packet, I feel that there's a hole that we need to fill with a canine program. What's nice is about Sergeant Boyfisel and her dogs is that she has two dogs. One of them is trained for explosives, the other one's for tracking and canine. She'll be able to talk a little bit more on the technical portion of that. The biggest thing tonight is to be able to give you a little bit of a, no pun intended, dog and pony show about the program, to answer your questions. What I want to try to preface this is not just trying to have a police canine for a technical aspect. What I look at it, and throughout my career in working in Kalamazoo, we had 9 canines in Kalamazoo. We had a very active canine program. I think a lot of canine programs throughout my career have sort of morphed into more of working with the public, reducing the anxiety of our citizens, both in schools and our home assisted living homes. They're out doing a lot of demos. We'll say demos is usually the word they call it. So I look at it from that aspect, that it's going to be a big win-win for us as a police department and as a city to have a canine program established here with us. So I'll welcome any questions before I introduce Sergeant Boyfisel.
Commissioners, do you have any questions at this time for Chief?
Not yet.
As you can see in the packet, she has worked hard to get donations to start the program up. There will be some perpetual costs that we will absorb as we go on. And I've already started some conversations with Dan as far as upfitting a vehicle to be able to have this purpose, or 2 dogs at once. So I'll welcome Sergeant Bridget, come on up here. Introduce one of her dogs. Talk to you a little bit more about a canine program and what it's going to do for us.
Welcome.
Thank you. I had the pleasure to meet most everybody before this began. Most everybody got to meet Nitro. For those that didn't, this is Nitro. He was my partner at my last department. He's trained in explosives detection, tracking, handler protection, articles, which means evidence that there's human scent on. He's even helped me find keys, so it's been helpful. He's done demonstrations from anywhere from schools with autistic children to homes that house elderly, Alzheimer's, dementia. We worked at a college campus, so everything in between. He worked all of the University of Michigan football games as a preventative measure for the explosive detection, VIP sweeps for the presidential debates, speaker there's everything that you can think of, graduations, sporting events, and then, all of the city events in Ypsilanti for the runs, the carnivals, everything. It's a great PR tool, public relations. It was, people were nervous at first because it's a new thing. How's the public going to look at it? What are they going to say? Are they going to think that we're trying to do aggressive, things with the dog? Once they saw the dogs in motion and how valuable that public relations tool is, they wanted more, and they wanted the dog at everything. So he had plenty of work. Moving past that, the female that I have is trained in narcotics, and then also all of the things that he's trained in. The only difference is he's explosives, she's narcotics. Both of them are tracking, so if a dog's better than the other dog in a certain area, then it'd be great to have both of them available. He's 8 years old, so he's got a little bit of time left, but not forever, obviously. I also have a younger dog who just turned 9 months, and I've started him on explosives to be able to replace him. Could have everything covered for quite a while. As far as what we have here in the county, if you turn to page 5 of what you were handed, Nitro here, down, very hairy right now. If you turn to page 5, it shows you our local demographics as far as the resources that we have for K-9 teams. You can tell just from looking at that, even Newaygo County has one K-9 team per just under 17,000 residents. It slowly goes up or down through Oceana, Kent, Ottawa, with Muskegon County being the lowest as one in almost 90,000 residents. I am aware that MSP just moved another dog back into our region. Obviously, he's extremely busy. Muskegon Heights takes up a lot of his time as well. The county has one dog, but I believe he's not working right now. So the resources are just bare minimum, if even there at all. There's a lot of stuff that we could do, a lot of help that we could give our community if we had that resource. A lot of opportunities that have been missed. Nitro down. He likes to play. So. I'm a very strong believer that a dog needs to be strong, social, appropriate. So you're not bringing out a dog that's just looking for people to hurt, right? You're looking for a dog that knows how to turn it on and how to turn it off. A big part of a dog program being successful would then fall also to dog selection and handler selection. I've been doing this now for 14 years. I've seen a lot of different dog teams, some really great, some really terrible. There's definitely things to do to make the program successful and a huge benefit to the city and our department. You guys have any questions about what we've talked about so far?
Commissioners? Anything at this time?
Nothing? All right. Currently, they're certified through the United States Police Canine Association, which is a nationally recognized agency. They offer legal assistance, so that would be beneficial for you. They offer financial assistance if there's an injury or a line of duty death for the dog. They're, like I said, nationally recognized, so going to court has that backing, and they have somebody that would come and represent us as an agency and city if the need were to arise. So that's a very beneficial thing. Nitro also had the pleasure to participate in the national competition for the USBCA. They run things a little bit different, where it's not just certifying, they also compete. It kind of pushes you to be a little bit better and to work a little bit harder, I think, to go above the bare minimum standards. He took second place in package searching, where they searched parcels, locate explosive odors. Only didn't take first because of time. He got 100 out of 100 points. In vehicles, he had 99 out of 100. I don't remember what rooms was, but he did very, very, very well. And that's a huge platform, again, to show positive relations between your city and department and everybody that's out there. Nitro down. Looking forward to hopefully being able to pass this along to you guys to get the yes. Do you guys have any questions at all?
So how would this what would this program entail going forward? So these are your dogs presently, and you've been training them, and they've been with you at a previous team. You're with our department now, and so I thought I read that you're essentially donating your dogs to the program
Correct.
and to the city.
Yes.
And then what additional resources will we need going forward to commit to it? And just to make it crystal clear, I think this is a great program and a welcome addition to our force, and I think it's going to be an excellent resource to not only improve the safety of our community, but will help improve the image of our police force as
absolutely.
well, I believe. But what's that financial necessity going forward for its maintenance?
Well, I think you have to look at it in probably 1 year, then probably 5 and 10. In the initial first year, I think it's going to be less than $10,000 for us. To get the vehicle outfitted and get the other elements we need to get our program off. That's pretty much it. But then I think over the next, from that first year on, we need to start developing the program. It's not going to be just start your boy facility. Hopefully, my goal is not just the one dog or just the one dog and a handler, because we have, a lot more shifts that we need to cover.
Right.
We don't want to exhaust. So just trying to build that out and see what that will cost over the next 5 years and then make it sustainable. One thing that we didn't touch on as much is our gap that we have with our police department for need for a dog. When we do have people that flee from us, when we do have people in a house that we need to have, might have a felony warrant for their arrest. These are gaps that sometimes we have to walk away from because we don't have a canine available. It'd be nice to be able to have that addition to our department to be able to assist us in those situations. But we don't want to put a human in there. We can utilize the dog. So, $10,000 or less, I think, is what we predicted to get us off the ground, and then from there is to build it out, is to make a perpetual, to get those cars built out and get other officers and trained. And since she actually has dogs that she,
Yeah, I can
the
touch
young
on
one,
that.
she has a young one right now that she's training that might be something that we'll be able to keep.
I also have multiple young dogs. They had a litter in May. I held a few back. They're in puppy raiser homes right now. They bring them to training. I train the dogs all in my off time. I've started them on odor work so far. Right now there are, excluding the one that I have to replace Nitro, there are 3 that would be available to come and work. And that's no cost to the city. Like I said, I've been doing this for 14 years. I am more than capable to raise, train, and prepare a dog and a team to work the road. So huge benefit, obviously, as far as money goes to the city. The dogs and the training would all be covered. The only thing that we're looking at is the equipment. So outfitting the car with the kennel insert, the heat alarm, door popper. Then you've got your, they're called training aids. So if there are explosive dogs, you need odors so that the dogs are able to certify and locate what they're supposed to locate. The narcotics comes at no cost through the DEA, so that's not a worry. You've got regular leashes, toys, food, vet care, bullet stab resistant vests. With that though, being in the dog world, it's big, but it's very small. There are a lot of organizations that have already stepped up and said, hey, I'm willing to cover first aid kits, Narcan for the dogs, bullet stab resistant vests, possibly the heat alarm systems with the door popper. So there's endless opportunity for things that are already covered, which obviously leaves money open to further your training and to be a better team.
All right. Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah.
Commissioner Hood?
I think like with everything else, we kind of want to get a feel what the public thinks about the dogs here, because dogs have not always been a wanted or friendly thing in the black community. And I think that's an important thing to look at, especially when you're talking about crowd control because they have been used for crowd control in the wrong ways. And I just feel that I think that that's a important aspect of this whole thing that we need to see what the community thinks about
Absolutely.
us with the dogs.
Yep, and just so everybody is aware of current policy on that, dogs are not used for crowd control anymore. People have obviously made some pretty grave errors in the past, right, utilizing this tool in the way that it should not be utilized. These dogs are not meant any longer for a scare tactic to bring fear out in people, regardless of what community it is. These dogs are there to assist, to help residents feel less anxiety, not more. They're there to, honestly, recruitment, retention is huge. That's no longer a thing as far as how those dogs are used. And if people do happen to do that, they shouldn't be with a dog. That would not fly here or anywhere else that I know of. If you look towards the back of this too, I've put in a lot of articles from our local area that show the public support. Anytime there's a dog injured in the line of duty or brought out to public events, there's massive public outreach, sympathy for the dog, wanting to be involved.
Well, I would just like to see what our communities think about the dog.
Absolutely.
And just in the recent past, I have seen, well, they show dogs on TV used for crowd control. And I guess that would go along with just like any officer. The handler is only as good as that person is. The officer is only good as he's as good as a person, you know, a man or a woman or whatever the case may be. You got your good officers, you got bad officers, and I'm quite sure you're going to have your good and your bad handlers.
Right.
So, that's I'm just concerned with that. That's it.
Absolutely, and fairly so. There's been a bad light in the past, and randomly some current events that's not a good look. And that's not how we want to operate at all. We want to use this as a tool to bring our communities together.
Thank you, Commissioner Hood. Commissioner Emery?
Yep. How many officers, I'm not sure which one of you will be used with a canine besides you? Are we planning?
We're in Earl right now.
Okay,
We have to work it into the budget if we're gonna move on to another one.
okay. So if there was a missing person and it took you longer than your shift, then what happens?
There's a community of canine handlers and
Okay,
you call in others.
okay.
Just like you would in a tactical, but you have tactical team. They're there for a very long time, another tactical. Let's let them use that community to be able to.
Uh-huh. So if we get to that point where we can add more officers, is there certain training that they have to go through and certification, something like that?
Certifications that she already has, they will have the same certifications,
Okay.
go with the same trainings. A lot of canine handlers train together. Same work, so they train together from different jurisdictions. And they try to hone in on either the USPCA, I can't remember the acronym for it. There's several different ones that we would get qualified that she feels comfortable with. She'll be the lead for the actual development of the policy. Commissioner Hood, also that the strict policy about when we can and cannot use our canine. We would make certain that we would develop those policies to have those in place, because I agree, it's going to be in place for that, in those type of situations.
Thank you.
Awesome, thank you.
Vice Mayor Jerome?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. To the point, Chief, you just said when you talked about policies, and how will those be enforced to make sure that they adhere to those policies? I think about teenagers, high school, a lot of activities going on in the high schools and stuff like that. You probably find some of your biggest substance of drugs in high schools now. I know when I was going to school, it was, the same thing, and things just don't really change. They just kind of get slicker with them and something new on the market there. Um, I guess, and to the sergeant, also, how would you handle a situation taking nitro into school settings? Just say, for instance, Muskegon Public Schools, high school. Would there be some type of communications with, the district, I guess superintendents, the school, the principals, and all that, when you do searches or?
Yes. Usually those type of situations are planned, sometimes announced, sometimes unannounced. You're talking about a K-9 coming into a school to be able to do a search. It depends upon the administration. There is K-9 teams that are not police rated, I guess you would say, that sometimes schools hire to come in and they bring the K-9s in to just do their random checks up and down the hallways. So it all depends. Usually when those things happen, there isn't usually any kids around. They're always in their rooms, and it's just up and down the hallways, so there isn't any interaction. To me, we want this dog to be around all our children from K up through 12 to be able to have that comfortability when we are at the school. It'd be a communication, and it would be one of the administrators reaching out to me and saying, I'd like to try to have a quick K-9. It has to be the whole thing, not singular.
Right.
We'll check everything.
I can remember being about 12 years old, and a long time ago when Muskegon Police Department had a K-9 unit, and I believe Commissioner Hood's father, he was an officer during that time, and it seemed to work pretty good because they brought the K-9 in to the schools and the students and can get familiar with it, and also it didn't really put a fear or scare or intimidate the students. It kind of, educated them and helped them understand that this is for, whatever use and how they're going to approach, So, so, and I think about the safety, because the minute someone see a police dog, and I just call it police dog, they're going to run, or immediately, the dog chases them if they feel that they are a suspect, and anything can happen. So just want to make sure we take the proper protocols, and strategically plan for something like this.
And working with, she's done this, for 14 years, but I've been doing it for 34. And back when in the early 90s, we went with K-9s. A lot of on-lead work. You're tracking, it's on lead. She's always got control of that dog. Very infrequently, maybe correct me if I'm wrong, will that dog ever be off lead? It has to be a very serious situation where that dog's gonna be off lead and going at somebody. I mean, a serious offender. And I think now we even train with our dogs to be able to yell out to even stop as they're in charge mode.
It's part
You
of the
have-
certification process.
Yeah, you have to be able to stop your dog in full mode, charging at somebody, and they have to be able to stop, just by rules. So it has evolved since I started back 3 years.
That's
Have to be under control.
Yeah, that's good to know, and it's a good question to address, because there are folks that are going to just be scared of the dog that are completely innocent, and their natural inclination is going to be to run the other way.
Absolutely.
And we don't want the dog chasing them just because they're running. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, part of the certification process, you have obedience, which you have to pass to be able to move on to anything else. You have, and that's all actually done off leash, so you have to be able to control your dog off leash. Either all of the little stuff you have to do. So person search, same thing, you have to find the person and then you call your dog back to you away from that person. There's no apprehension. So again, control. The apprehension routine, send your dog for a bite. You'll make just about to that person, call them back, no biting. So control is a huge, huge part of the certification process.
Thank you.
Yes, Commissioner Hood.
Just a little tidbit. And I can see, what's your name, Officer
Oh, Faisal.
Bo Faisal?
Yes.
I was trying to pronounce that all weekend.
That's okay. It's more easy than what it looks like. It's literally just how it's spelled.
Okay.
So easy.
And I think, if my memory serves me right, one of the reasons why we got rid of the dog the last time we had it And I thought that, I'm thinking that's probably handler. Is the dog bit a couple people inside the PD? Well, not inside the PD, but in City Hall. And I think that was the reason why we, if I remember correctly, and I know it happened on one occasion. I think it was twice, and I think that was one of the reasons why they ended up getting rid of the dog. But I think that's a handler thing. I really believe. Yeah, and it looks like you got really good control of your dog, and he respects you and loves you. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, everything is done, and the times have changed as well with how you train the dog, right? Long gone are the days, at least with the people that I surround myself with, of just correcting. I like to build my foundation of as most positive as I can. Yes, so that the dog, it's clear, it's fun. Nobody's upset. You're not creating, this giant nerve ball that could just snap at any moment. It's all clear, calm work. Obviously, they bark and they get crazy, right? They're dogs. They're very high energy dogs, but it's a controlled chaos. They love it. It's fun.
Pretty much everything that she does with the canine is driven by her command. If she wants the dog to bark, if she wants the dog to track, if she wants the dog to do anything, it's all by command. I mean, that's how well trained these canines and canine handlers are.
Commissioner St. Clair?
I had a conversation with an officer from another agency some months back, just getting his general opinion about the state of our police department as a parallel party. And one of the only bits of negative feedback that he had is that we didn't have a dog unit, and was pretty adamant that was a big downfall of this department. That was that, and that we didn't do Narcan were the two bits of negative feedback that he had about the whole department. So I think that we're working on both of those things, I think.
We're getting Narcan and getting everybody trained within the next 2 weeks, yes.
So I think from that perspective, there's definitely a gap.
Gotta have attractability as a police department, and if somebody wants to be on this police department, they know there might be a chance to be a canine handler at some point in their career. That's one of their goals.
Yeah.
So that's-
And he just saw it as a resource that was lacking for a department of this size, that it should be there for the community. So.
Excellent. Commissioner Gorman?
Yes, I wanted to ask, looking at this, the budget's pretty donation supported. Is that typical for K9 units? I'm just unfamiliar, so I want to make sure we're not setting up for something that doesn't have sustainable funding in the future.
It is. So I don't know how familiar you are with the area as a whole. A good friend of mine ran, he just retired, the Calhoun County Canine Program. Pretty good program, 100% donation based. They have zero issues with raising money. A lot of times they don't need to because they have so much coming in. The opportunities are literally endless. So
Okay.
it's not a hard thing to do.
Okay. Thank you. And
Time involving, but not hard.
okay, that's great to hear. Thank you for the feedback about those on our unit wanting this too. That was my other question. I don't want to make room for canines when we also have things we want to improve with our PD. So if this is something that they're very excited about, I'm really excited to help them for that too.
Thank you. So we're not taking any formal action tonight. You're just introducing yourself and this program and just trying to get our general feel for it and support for it. If we're proceeding with this, will you and management be returning to us on a policy as to how the K9 unit will be used?
So that was actually going to be my question. So I've been taking notes, as I usually do. And what I'm hearing from the commissioners is there's a kind of 3 topic areas that you would like more information on. Communication with the public and kind of what their feedback is, policies on how the K9 unit would be used, and the financial side of it. So am I missing any? Those are 3 broad topics I know, but I just want to make sure I'm getting the pulse right. So Chief Kozel and I can have that conversation on how we get that information, and so that when we do come to you with a proposal, we'll hopefully be able to answer those questions to your satisfaction and move forward from there.
Can I just mention in the policy? I know personally, I want to see an outline specifically for when canines will be at public events, so we're all clear on expectations of that. I just don't want canines showing up to some events, some not at other events. The community confusion about when they're there and why. So that is something I'll be looking for in that policy.
Okay. Also, it'd be welcomed for any of our canine handlers, yourself and any future ones, if we did have some cultural sensitivity training around the use of the dog, because different cultures respond differently to dogs, and so I think that'd be helpful for any of our canine handlers to have an understanding of.
Also, coming from a university, I'm well versed in all of the different trainings. I put on a lot of them, trained the entire department on how to act appropriate around the dogs, history, what was done wrong, what was done right, what can be done better. So I'm more than ready for that.
Excellent. Well, thank you for your work on advancing this program and your generosity as well to make this happen.
It's my pleasure.
Commissioners, any final thoughts or questions? All right. Well, thank you, Sergeant Beaufacil, and thank you, Chief Kozel,
Thank you.
Manager. I'm gonna say
Good work.
Manager Seifert. It's alliterative. It just rolls off the tongue,
It is.
Manager Mike Seifert. Yeah, don't go anywhere, Chief Kozel. You're up next.
I'll be right here, yep.
Next item is 1033 program presentation.
I asked the city manager if we could just have this as like a short presentation for council to be able to just read, not only in the packet, just to make you aware of this program. If you're not familiar with it, it's the 1033 program. It's a program for equipment that can be attained through the military. It's a program that I've been involved with throughout my career. It's a program that we weren't involved with here, and I felt that we had another gap that we needed to fill, because to me, anything free that we can utilize is a benefit that I don't have to take out of my budget. I did stress in the presentation there that this is not for Chief Coles to be looking for an armored vehicle or a personnel vehicle or anything like that. This is looking for those pieces of equipment that we may be able to utilize for our department. It could be a Pelican case, it could be sets of gloves, it could be anything. There's a lot of these things that come up. Once they come up, they get gobbled up quickly, so I want to be able to have an opportunity for us to be able to look and be able to acquire this equipment. And I wanted to have an opportunity for you to be able to ask questions also, because it's, you know, a great program that's been going on for a while.
Excellent. Well, I appreciate your emphasis that this is not intended to pursue the militarization of our police force, but rather help us defray the costs of our ongoing needs to maintain our existing police force. Commissioners, any questions or comments with regard to this initiative? Commissioner Hood.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm glad that you cleared up the one part that it's not looking for tanks and
Yes.
those type of weaponry. So, yeah, that's,
I agree.
we can get it for free. We can get it for free. Yeah.
We like free.
Welcome. Any other questions? I just want to have some time to be able to do it. I think it's going to be a good tool for us, and we have already a couple command officers that have been assigned to it to get it rolling. And I just saw the emails that we're real close to getting it blessed. So.
Do we have the opportunity with this program to also obtain any equipment or gear that would serve our fire department as well as our police department?
Certainly.
Okay.
I've seen office equipment. I've seen all kinds of things. Comes anywhere from around the United States of any type of base that needs to offload something. It's put on there, and usually they'll ship it for you too.
Okay. Excellent.
Nice.
Well, thank you, Chief Kozel.
Okay. Thank you.
Appreciate you leading up that initiative. All right. Next up, we have marijuana ordinance consideration of updates, as well as our Muskegon Social Equity Program. Related. relating to the RFP for our expungement program. Welcome, Mr.
Good evening.
Franzik.
Would you like to go over the RFP first, or?
Oh no, you can launch in right into the ordinance.
Okay, we can go in the ordinance.
We're
do
doing
have,
both tonight, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
you can start with the ordinance.
So we do have a group here from Green Room Gardens tonight. They're a local cannabis shop that grows and processes. They're in the overlay district. They also got a second location on Henry Street to grow. After they got their location approved, they did note that they want to do processing there as well. We don't allow processing in those districts. This stems from a few years ago. After we created the marijuana overlay district, we noticed that it was really pricing people out, especially local people from the industry. So what we decided to do was allow some of the more non-intrusive types of licenses to be allowed with the special use permit in B2, B4, I1, I2, and medical care districts. And since a lot of those are around residential areas, we decided to just allow the less intrusive ones, which would be the 500 plant grow, the micro businesses, and the consumption lounges. Now, the gentleman at Green Room Gardens made a good point that we do allow micro businesses, which allows for processing, but we don't allow just the processing license. And I do think it's probably time that we amend that. I would be supportive of it. The reason we didn't allow that at first is because this was also new when we were doing it, and when we were under the caregiver law, we did have a building that was doing some of their own processing, and they were doing the butane extraction, and there was an incident. A refrigerator blew up. There wasn't a lot of regulation around that at the time. So knowing that and the process with the butane, we decided to leave that off. But after doing some more research, found out that it's probably not something we need to worry ourselves with too much, that it's a state license now. Anybody that does the butane extraction, they need to work with the state fire marshal. So they really need to have their stuff in order to be able to do that. And not all processors do the butane extraction either. So they do that. They do have to work with the state fire marshal. So that is about as informed as I am with the processing.
If we were to move forward with amending our zoning so as to allow processing as an also use via the special land use permit process, along with the Class B rec grows and the consumption establishment and the micro businesses, do we have latitude in terms of the type of processing? So let's say we open all processing for our industrial I1, I2 as a special land use, but maybe the business ones, if it's heavily surrounded by residential, there are certain processes not permitted in there. Do we have that flexibility or latitude, or is it all or nothing?
That's a good question. Maybe our legal counsel could weigh in.
We certainly can look at it.
Okay. Yeah. I get the logic of why we're considering this, particularly because we allow micro businesses in those, the B2, B4, MC, medical care, and then the I1, I2. But I think of scale in terms of micro business, and they can only process up to, they can only have 150 plants. They're limited. And so that's the extent of the material that they'll be processing. So it's a reduced scale relative to a larger grow operation and processing, potentially triple or more the number of plants, and whether that is suitable for an area that is highly residential versus something that is industrial. That's my only question around this, and trying to looking for some clarity, I guess, and assurances regarding safety. And it sounds like at least it's now being regulated closely with the state fire marshal that could provide us the confidence that we need to move forward. But that's the question that's running around in my head in terms of whether or not to allow this processing in all of these or just certain ones, and if we have the latitude to say all in one and restricted in others. But commissioners, what are your thoughts or questions that you have with regard to this matter? Vice Mayor German.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Thank Mr. Franzik. I'm still learning this process about this whole cannabis industry, and speaking with the owners of Green Room Garden, they basically explained the details and what was going on in that in that ward, and I believe that's Commissioner Emery's ward. I had them reach out to her as well, but then I reached out to Mr. Franzik, who's who's the expert at this. I'm comfortable with the request as long as it's strategically planned and regulated, as he stated. If there's any concerns, I guess he could address those. And having that area at one time where they did process, I believe, I guess it was an oversight when it didn't get approved for the zoning or the ordinance when they moved into that area, into that building, or
No, they applied for Class B grow.
Class B?
It wasn't until during the meeting they requested processing 2, but that was too late. They needed to be on the application beforehand.
Okay. Two. So yeah, I guess if it's under the leadership and guidance of the zoning director, and if the commission agrees, I can support that.
Thank you, Vice Mayor German.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts or questions, commissioners?
I have a
Commissioner Emery.
Under the Class B rec grows 500 plants, is that regulated by, let's say, odor? Because that's probably the biggest complaint is in the neighborhoods is the smell during harvest time. Was that a question or a statement?
I think I know where you're going with this. I haven't gotten any complaints from a state certified business yet. The only odor complaints we get are from the caregivers. So anytime that it runs through the state, I think their filtration requirements are probably is what is keeping the smell out of these areas.
So let's say the place on Henry Street, that would be state regulated or controlled?
Yes, it was not at first. That's why we got so many. Now I can't promise we won't get any in the future, but from what I've seen, I've yet to get a complaint from a state registered grower retail facility.
Awesome.
And when we approved the special land use permits for these operations, we had a condition that if there is an odor nuisance issues, that the permit may be revoked. And so it just puts extra emphasis on the operators to control that odor. The facility that you're thinking of, that you're referencing over on Laketon, on Laketon west of Henry, is continuously a problem.
I did speak to him in person 2 weeks ago and let him know we are very close to probably getting rid of that license. So he did assure us. I did follow up with an actual letter.
Okay.
So this isn't something we've acted on before, so I might want to come to the commission for guidance, but I think it's probably about time with some of these that have been repeat offenders.
Repeatedly.
Yeah, and we note that on their
reputation to
list.
the industry overall, and our residents
And
guests passing through there are getting.
it's time for the
Quite
caregivers to renew in June. So this is the time we're really going to note complaints and may not be issuing. Because really there's not many caregivers left. I mean, we went from 18 to 20 down to about 3 or 4 last year. So
Okay. Commissioner Emery, follow.
Just a big thank you for that, Mike.
Yep.
Just that I probably get more complaints about that western part of Laketon than any other place throughout the whole city. So
Yeah, it's the caregivers, but people presume it's, our dispensaries or grow operations, or the ones that are licensed through the state and that we've zoned and allowed in different areas, whether special land use permit or in our overlay district. So yeah, just it's not a good look for the rest of the industry of the city when we have operators not so mindful of their neighbors.
Right.
Commissioners, any other questions or comments with regard to this ordinance change? Okay. So then you'll be moving forward and bringing this to the planning commission, and we're looking to get some clarity to
Yes.
help inform the planning commission about options with latitude on processing if there is appetite to have that latitude.
Okay, so y'all propose two options. If we find out that you can restrict the butane, y'all propose it two different ways.
Okay. Sounds good. Did you have something?
No.
Okay. And next up, we've got the RFP for our expungement program through our social equity program.
Yep. So we kept this pretty basic. There was some additional information in here we decided to take out. We were offering any type of assistance, maybe if they needed a building or any type of other, printing or other objectives they need us to help fill. But our legal counsel informed us that maybe that's not the best idea. Is that we try to stay as hands off on this process as possible, since we are the other party in the lawsuit. So basically we are asking we're asking for the company to give us a quote for a one-time expungement and 3 over the course of the year, and they would provide as much information as possible. We want to see what they can provide on site. We know that people have issues when they're given a stack of paperwork and they're asked to go home and turn it in themselves or mail it. Some of that stuff gets lost in the thick of things. So we want to see if any of these groups can offer as much of these services as possible at the clinic, and leaving up as little for the applicant to do as possible. Now,
Okay. Do we need to add any language clarifying that we are anticipating to make the service completely free for city residents, but still make some level of service available for non-residents, but we're just not going to cover all of the costs. Like, we're not going to cover the fingerprinting and the background check and the permit and the application fee itself to the Michigan State Police, but we would still welcome non-residents and would assist them to some extent. Or are we going to, is what you presented this RFP only with residents in mind?
yeah, that's a good question. I think we're only going to want to serve the actual residents, so maybe that needs to be noted in here. But as far as covering costs, it's gonna have to be. We're gonna have to see what the applicants propose that they cover, and is that covered in the cost of the expungement? Because I don't envision the city actually paying the fee for the fingerprinting and the background checks. Correct, Mr. Schreier?
Well, this commission has said we want to pay that. This commission has previously said we want to pay for all of the fees for our residents going through the expungement process. That includes background checks, that includes fingerprinting, that includes the application fee to the state. And however that gets sorted out, if that is someone that's submitting the proposal and saying we'll cover it all and this is all inclusive of our fee to the city, or if we're going to do a breakout, because someone doing expungement planning may want to service everybody, and then we're making resource available for them to defray the costs of the fingerprinting, background, and the application fee for our city residents. So they're putting on a let's say Greater Muskegon expungement clinic serving everybody, but our city residents would be able to get those services for free. We can do that? Okay.
So that would be covered by the group's fee to us. There wouldn't actually be an exchange of the city paying individuals.
Oh, yeah, no, I do not anticipate us paying any individuals directly. This would go to the service provider or service providers. Because it could be you have one entity putting on the expungement clinic and they're using service provider one for this, background check, this one for fingerprinting, this one for goes directly to the Michigan State Police. So we would be, cutting that check to the Michigan State Police directly for the application.
For their processing.
Yes.
Presumably, I think how you'd want to set it up is the expungement clinic would write the check to the county sheriff for the fingerprinting, and then we reimburse, so long as it's a city resident, et cetera.
Could we set it up in a way where, like, say it was to be done here at City Hall, and then we could confirm if someone was or wasn't a resident. If they weren't a resident, they would pay whatever that fee is, maybe to the clerk's office or the treasurer's office. Volunteering, you guys. And then that would cover the non-resident part of it. We'd still just do one check, so that way for the and that way for the folks who are putting the clinic on, they don't have to worry about determining who is and isn't a resident. That falls on us.
We could do that.
And then then it's just a fee that somebody would pay. It would also make it easier whether someone's a resident or not. They just go through the same process. Is that because then I don't even know that we would have to actually put that in the RFP. Because we would just figure out how to handle that on our back end.
So they would like come up with a list of the residents they serviced?
I think, the way that I see it is that we would certify that someone is or isn't a resident. And if they're not a resident, they would pay whatever associated fees that we would have to pass on. And then they just go through the clinic. The folks who are running the clinic wouldn't necessarily even know one way or the other because they're not necessarily going to care.
So we would have staff at the clinic verifying?
Probably, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So it might be a little bit more work on our end, but I think it would be easier for the residents, and I think and less frustrating for someone who doesn't maybe realize that they live on one side of a line or another.
Yeah. And I'll say that whenever that happens, in lieu of paying staff, if you can give me the software or whatever the tool needed, I'd be happy to volunteer to do that and confirm residency right there. Just to maybe defray some of our costs. But I'd be happy to support in that capacity. Do we want to, commissioners? Do you have any questions or input on what our manager was just sharing? Commissioner Hood.
I just want to say I think that works out better. It sounds like it would work. A lot less confusion.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Do we want to perhaps give some flexibility to entities that might, because I think I mentioned to you before, Mr. Franczyk, that there's one cannabis operation that has an attorney as part of the organization, and they welcome people to come in and they'll sit down and walk you through the process. They're not covering the cost of the process, but they're helping them through the process. You got to do step 1, 2, 3, and this is how you can get expunged. They kind of hold your hand through the process. Would we want to, as part of this RFP, welcome them to be able to put together some kind of proposal saying, hey, we want to service folks, but if they are city residents that come to us, that we can, get a grant from the city to cover those costs of the city residents?
You may want to, but I'll tell you the problem from our end when we're in court is that the applicant who was told he had to do step 1, then step 2, then step 3, did step 1 because it was easy, it was right there, didn't do step 2, didn't do step 3, and the court then has everybody there and it gets adjourned off, and eventually the judges get mad because they don't do steps 2 and 3. That's the risk on leaving it to somebody else, as opposed to whoever's putting on the clinic, make sure the fingerprinting is done promptly, they get it back, they submit it to the state police, they submit it to attorney, a notice to the attorney general, etc.
Okay, that makes sense. And so our expectation with this RFP and any of the applicants that would be approving is that they'd be holding their hands throughout the process and confirming that they show up as well to that hearing. Okay, I'm comfortable with that.
Or a substantial discount if you're not. That would be my recommendation.
Okay. Any additional questions or comments on this item, commissioners?
So should I be putting something in here about the city will reimburse those costs?
Sounds like it.
that the commission's expectation is that the cost for
citizens.
city residents is absolutely free. Yeah, for all of those steps.
So we reimburse them, or is this something we cut beforehand? Or
No, you're gonna have to probably write, the city will have to write an individual check for each person to the state police and to the county sheriff. We are probably not gonna be able to group 10.
We probably could group it with the background checks, because I happened to help organize an expunsion clinic a couple years ago. We probably could write a big check to the sheriff's department or some other background or fingerprint provider and cover up to X number, and so we wouldn't need to do each individual one.
Okay.
But that's going to be up to the folks that are submitting the proposal, I suppose, to work out.
To work that out.
But you're right. In terms of Michigan State Police, we're going to need to cut that check individually because it's going to be attached to that individual.
Because I know when we had to do, we had myself and 2 others in the office needed to go through that process. Not the expungement, but getting the clearance to get documents. And it was a single check. Now, would the county sheriff cut a special deal on this? Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, the sense I got from talking to Sheriff Bowen a couple years ago was that he would accept a bulk fee for multiple. And then the way we had done the background checks is that it was a card that was loaded with the money, and the cards, they just processed each individual iChat and ran it. And so that card, whomever's submitting these proposals, that card would have to be reserved for our city residents only. Yeah. If that's how they use it. I don't know. I'm just thinking of one mechanism.
I think we're going to learn a lot when we get these proposals back.
Yeah.
I think they can kind of help walk us through what they can provide.
Yeah. I just wanted, I guess, the key thing I wanted to impress and include it in here, and any of the applicants to this proposal understand, is that the city wants the process to be completely free for our city residents.
I can write that in there.
Yes.
And so you're gonna limit it to residents, what you're gonna pay for is current residents of the city of Muskegon, regardless of where the expungement is gonna happen.
Yes. That's my expectation. I don't know about the rest of the commission, but if you are a city resident, yes. If it's something that happened in Ottawa County versus something that happened in Muskegon County, yeah, you're a city resident, we'll expunge it. And it's for all eligible expungement. Yes. Not just cannabis related.
Can ask a process question on that one. So if, like, say it was in Ottawa County, they would have to go to an Ottawa County court, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So, like, for argument's sake, say it's Washtenaw County. I think we might want to make clear in whatever we're doing that we're not paying mileage or something like that if they have to travel out of county for something.
Yes.
Because
That'll be on them.
Yeah, but just because if we say all reasonable or related expenses, that's a requirement to be in person. We'll just want to make sure that we're clear on that.
And we just emphasize those three then.
Okay.
The background check, the fingerprinting, and the application fee to the state police is what we expect to be. Yeah.
Those three.
I didn't pick Washtenaw County for any particular reason, just to be clear.
You got an offense there? You didn't get expunged?
But we have had people who are current residents in Detroit expunging a city of Muskegon ticket.
Yeah, no.
And it's done back here.
Yeah. Yeah. This is current city residents. Yeah. Wherever they may be in the state. Okay. All right. Final thoughts, questions, commissioners? No? All right.
I'll get that updated and send it out.
Thank you, Mr. Franzik.
All right. And we'll be bringing that amendment to Planning Commission in March for your notification.
All right. Next up, we have the Arena Solar Power Purchase Agreement, DPW and Arena. We have our DPW Director, Dan Vanderheide. Welcome.
Evening, Mayor and Commissioners. We also have Chart House Energy here with us to help answer questions in the specifics of the proposal, if you have any. So, the summary of this item is that most of you have seen it before. It was discussed as far back as summer of 2020. After some lengthy process work to get an acceptable agreement, at that time it was approved at the commission level. Just before the signing was to take place, we got a call from the county tax assessor, and they were concerned about the way that the agreement would need to be taxed. At that time, because of the way that they were concerned about it, the financier felt that that project was no longer valid. So we then came back to you and rescinded that agreement. We are back tonight because those tax issues have resolved themselves, or at least the incentives have changed enough to where the tax issues are no longer a deal killer, so to speak. So what this is, for those of you who are not familiar with it, is a proposal to place solar panels on the roof of the arena downtown. It's what's called a power purchase agreement. So essentially we contract with a third party, in this case Chart House Energy and SunWealth LLC, in order to provide that solar equipment. We provide the space for it, they provide the equipment. They then sell us the energy at a cost that is lower than we pay our utility provider, Consumers Energy. Because of the way the incentives are structured, a private company is required in order to take advantage of many of them, and so that is the reason that these power purchase agreements or arrangements are necessary. Other than that, the important parts, or the interesting part, is page 4 of 4 of the proposal in your packet there, or the fifth page of this item if you count the cover sheet. And it shows over the next 20 years, 5 years, what the savings from this power purchase agreement would be. And you can see that many years into the future, the savings becomes quite substantial. And because the arena and the city are going to be around a long time, it's beneficial for us to lock in those energy rates today and watch our utility rates go up, and yet continue to pay the rate that's provided to us in this proposal for that time period. There's a lot of other specifics about what happens at the end of the agreement and all those things, and if you have questions about those, then I will happily turn it over to John from Chart House, and he can talk you through that.
Thank you, Mr. Vanderhyde. Commissioners, do you have any questions for staff before we call out Mr. Ledsworth? All right. Would you like to come up, Mr. Ledsworth? You have anything to add with regard to this project? And yeah, come on up. And I will say thank you for your persistence on this project. I was really excited when we, went down this avenue a couple years ago. Hiccups came about and we weren't able to move forward. But I really appreciate your persistence.
Absolutely.
And keeping this project alive. And I'm fully supportive of it. I'd love to see our solar panels on our arena, creating that clean, renewable energy and helping to defray our costs.
Yes.
And no upfront cost to us.
No, nothing. We've done this in Northern Shores. We've done this in Muskegon Heights. We got past the hiccup. I would just quickly add 2 things with the Inflation Reduction Act. That is what made it more attractive to the investor. Chart House Energy is a Muskegon company, 14 years old. We have always played prevailing wage in domestic products. That is now, as part of the Inflation Reduction Act, the investor can get an extra 10% tax credit. That's why we were able to lower the city's price of the energy. One thing I will add, though, when this was January 6th, when I put this together, the Michigan Public Service Commission had not yet approved the rate increases from the utility companies. They have been approved now, and the arena is likely going to see a 10% increase. Well, not likely, they will. Unfortunately, everyone in this room is going to see a big utility rate increase. So I will be revising this because your savings will be larger than what's on page 4, just because your utility rate. What I need to get is a new bill. But so we'll use domestic product. We'll do marketing, anything that the city wants us to do. We will add probably 3 jobs with the help of Shoreline Staffing, local business, primarily to promote local jobs And then we actually pay to have the shoreline staffing help them potentially find a job in the construction industry. And then the last thing I would note, we work closely with the Garland Company who did the roof on the arena 4 years ago now, I think, close to. You have a 30-year warranty on that roof. We will work closely with them for a pre-construction inspection and a post-construction inspection. And it's non-penetrating and it won't void your warranty. So I don't know, any other questions? I'm excited to finally do this. This is the third time. The first two times we had unanimous support, but we're really excited about this one. So, and then
Third
our
time's
next
the
step,
charm.
we'd like to talk to the DPW building because that's a new roof. And we'd love to explore, this investor would love to explore down at the water intake, so.
Excellent. And we got more buildings. All right. Thanks. Commissioners, do you have any questions for Mr. Ledsworth? No? All right. Any final comments before we move on? No? All right.
So just process note, we'll be, we're working with attorneys to just revise that agreement to make sure it includes all the latest things and a couple modifications that Sunwealth had requested, and we'll bring it back for your formal consideration, hopefully at the 28th or as soon as possible.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Vanderhyde. Next up, we have landscaping contract, and you're not going anywhere. This is your item as well.
Yes, it is. All right, so this item at its heart is a proposal to contract out with the help of some of our partner agencies such as the DDA and other funding partners, the services that the city has traditionally performed in the downtown improvement district. This came about as an idea, really just to initially get an idea of what the level of effort that the city was putting into the maintenance of the downtown areas as the BID, the Business Improvement District that overlays portions of the downtown, was considering expiring, and the DDA, which is not, was considering taking on some of those costs perhaps. As an aside, they're meeting tomorrow in a joint meeting to consider this same item for the portions that are proposed to be funded by them. Surprise, the bids came back really favorable, and so the discussion tonight is we'd like to really do this. Packet has information about the areas that are proposed for contracting. There's a map that shows all of the different areas. One note you'll see on some of these documents reference to the Lakeside bid or Lakeside Business Improvement District. They have elected not to participate at this time. They're going to continue to do that with their own forces. So you'll see them in the bid tab, for example, because we received bids for that work, but you don't see it in the cost proposal, which is page 82, noted as page 82 in your packet, because they elected not to participate. So the map shows all the areas that are labeled and colored that are proposed to be included in this contract. The next page that I just referenced, 82, shows the various funding organizations, the city of which is one, both the city GF or general fund column and the farmers market. The CFFMC column is the Community Foundation for Muskegon County. They have traditionally funded with the help of a donor the Hackley Park work, and they are proposing to continue to do so. And then the bid and DDA columns are combined because those organizations, as I mentioned, are meeting tomorrow to consider funding at the level that you see there. This spreadsheet is based on the bid tab, which is the next page in your packet, and it is based on the bids from Barry's Greenhouse and Landscaping. Staff met together with the bid and the DDA and feel that the benefits of awarding to a single organization as well as awarding to the organization that has historically done a good amount of the work downtown together with the fact that their bid is essentially the low bid. And again, it's a little bit complicated to see all of those things on the bid tab, but if you have any questions about that, I'd be happy to follow up. But their bid is, with all the categories combined, the low bid, essentially, with some of the qualifiers added in. So that's the proposal before you. Again, just for discussion tonight, just to see what your feelings are on having a contractor do a lot of this work. We'll find out tomorrow whether the bid and DDA are supportive of the same, and I believe that we will find out that they are.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Vanderhyde. And yeah, I was kind of taken aback when I saw the numbers as well, as how favorable they were relative to what our expectations were for costs. I know I spoke with you about that. Did we confirm that they understand the scope of the work and our expectations for the scope of the work, so there's not any surprises? We move forward with this contract, and then the summer comes about, and then it's not up to par what our expectations are, and we've got people, upset. And coming at you and coming at us and like, hey, this is not acceptable. So have we double checked that they fully understand the scope and what our expectations are?
We have. They have specifically stated that the areas will be maintained to the same level that they currently maintain Hackley Park, which I think we can all agree is beautiful. And frankly, although I'm loath to admit it, probably better than my staff can do. So I think we will see, not only based on our ability to work in other areas of the city for a cost that is comparable to this amount that we're proposing to spend, but I think we'll also see an increase in service, or an increase in the beauty down there.
Excellent. Thank you. Yeah, Hackley Park is very nicely done. And done with the support of a generous benefactor through the Community Foundation. I'm blanking on that fund of that name, but Haran. So grateful for Miss Haran and that fund. I happened to come across her at the one of our food truck rallies last summer at the farmers market and got to thank her personally. But so grateful for that generosity. Commissioners, any questions or comments on
Anything you want to add?
this item? Did you have anything to add, Mr. Alexander?
I just say that we're Dave Alexander, business development manager and manager with the DDA and the bid. We have that joint meeting tomorrow. We anticipate support just for comparison purposes. If you take a look at the downtown landscaping and the downtown plants and flower pots, it's a $3,300 reduction this year versus what we had last year based upon this Barry's bid. So we're very pleased with the numbers as they came back. And the first year will be done by the Business Improvement District, and it's their intention to not ask you for a renewal of their special assessment. And there is anticipation that the DDA would be able to pick that up going forward. And so the first year would be bid, and the years 2, 3, 4, and 5, if it was extended the full length, would be to the DDA.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Alexander. Commissioners, do you have any questions for Mr. Alexander with regard to the financing component of this, and bid handling it the first year and handing it off to the DDA subsequently? All right. Thank you, Mr. Alexander. Thank you, Mr. Vanderhyde. I think we are good to go on, at least at this moment in time. We'll wait what the DDA and the bid has to say tomorrow at their meeting.
Yep. So it would be anticipated this would be on the 28th.
Again, assuming positive outcome for this proposal tomorrow, then we'd be back on the 28th with an official contract award.
All right, excellent. Thank you. All right, we have public comment next, and then we have a couple items to address in closed session. So before we do that, though, I just want to give an opportunity for the commission if there's anything that you specifically want to bring up or ask, either on tomorrow's agenda or anything else before I go to public comment.
I was just going to say, if you do have any questions specifically on the Adelaide Point financing portion of it, not or PUD amendments as well. But specifically on the finance amendment, please let me know, and I can try to get those ahead of the meeting. I've already had a couple commissioners reach out, so if anybody else has questions, please let me know. But
Thank you, Mr. Seifert.
So wait, do we want to have a discussion about it now, or, I mean,
If you want to discuss it right now, we can
I'm fine
get into
discussing
that,
it now.
or we
also
can
I'm one
preserve
okay.
discussion for that tomorrow. But if there's anything that you want to ask right now, or maybe have staff prepare or have ready by our meeting tomorrow, we can launch into that.
I can kind of give you an overview of some of the questions I've gotten that we're preparing answers for. I left my lists upstairs, but most of them I think I can do from memory. One question was, what's our overall bonding limit, and what percentage of this would that entail? The question about what's the rationale between the 50-50 split was one of them. Another one was about just the financing structure in general, and how the different mechanisms we can have in place in the agreement regarding security for the city to make sure that we have a good chance of getting the funds to flow back to us. There was one more that you had. Oh,
the TIF tables.
Oh, the
and
TIF
pro
tables.
formas?
Yeah, the TIF table pro formas. We do have the TIF tables, which staff can dive into a little bit tomorrow. Director Ekholm would be the best one to do that tomorrow. Just depending on how much detail you'd want, but we do have how those numbers perform. The other one is the TIF table repayment based on just local capture or state capture as well. And then what the timeline is that the state has for needing the submittals in, because this is a component of the Michigan Strategic Fund Review, which happens at the end of the month. Just for the answer on that, it's the 21st, which is next Tuesday, that they need to have that by. So those are the major questions that I had. Commissioner St. Clair, was there any other ones?
I don't think so.
Okay. So those are the ones that I've gotten so far. A number of those we already have answers to regarding bonding capacity, the rationale for the 50-50 split, and obviously the TIF table conversation. But if there's other things that you have questions on, please let me know. I know it's a dense document. Staff worked on it for many weeks, and prior to my arrival as well. And as council will point out, I believe this was our 10th iteration of it. So there has been back and forth. So we've had time to kind of digest it, but I know it's a lot for you guys to digest. So I want to make sure I'm able to answer those questions. So.
Thank you. Any comments or questions with regard to that at this time? Okay. Any other business to bring up right now? All right. And we're going to go to public comment. I haven't received any forms for public comment. I see one coming. All right. Well, I will welcome you up right now, John Dick Allen Jr., joining us from the Nelson neighborhood. Welcome. You have up to 3 minutes to provide remarks.
Good evening. Thank you for your time and diligence and everything you do and work for our beautiful city. I'm here to address some issues on the consent agenda item of the amendment to the planned unit development of the Hartshorn Village and adjoining Hartshorn property. Part of the changes involve having an in and out launch well with specialized forklifts going back and forth most of the daytime hours across the bike path and launching near the northwest end of Hartshorn's large boat basin. These forklifts, like every commercial vehicle, are required to have a loud backup beeper, and the proximity of this constant sound that is likely to carry across the entirety of the Hartshorn Basin and fishing areas is a major concern. 30 to 60 boats a day being projected in and out is 60 to 120 trips of a forklift. There is no feasible way to fit all that work into the time frames bookending the main hours of the day being claimed in answers from the public forum. Each vessel takes a minimum of 15 minutes to pick from the building and safely and slowly move across the path, launch, tie down, or conversely untie and recover and place back in the building. So that is one of my biggest concerns. It happens to be right near my slip, and a lot of other people have voiced that, and there's really no clarity on what's being done to mitigate that. Second is the potential, but again not clearly stated, relocation of the dinghy launch to inside of the large boat basin and replacing what is currently a well-used and publicly rentable fenced pavilion with a grill, fire pit, and covered shelter. Amidst the removal of the pavilion, that would be a huge loss in and of itself. It also presents an issue of parking for both large boat basin customers and the dinghy customers if we are forced together, as there is a very limited amount of parking at that end of the basin, as well as major cost to build new dinghy racks and all the docks, etc. within the basin itself. They already exist in the small boat, and with one tree removal are perfectly fine. These are both major concerns and just the tip of the iceberg as far as the unknowns involved in the Hartshorn property parts of the amendment on tomorrow's agenda. Myself and many others attended and spoke at the Planning Commission meeting regarding these concerns, as well as the impact on the bike path, and I have to speak on what I found to be a bit unfair in those proceedings. The developer gave their presentation and public comment followed. Public comment was closed for discussion, and at the end the opinions of the commission were clearly split amid the same concerns of clarity on many points of the proposal. The developer, after much hand-raising, was allowed to speak again, but the many individuals in attendance from the public that were then also raising their hands were not allowed the opportunity to speak again. I thought that was a bit unfair and just wanted to point it out. I'd like to be very clear, though, I am not in any way opposed or against the Adelaide Point development. I'm proud to see this town I love continue to grow, and Adelaide Point is a part of that. But now that it includes the Hartshorn Village development and Hartshorn Marina Management contract included, there are many concerns that myself and fellow voters have and would like more time and clarification on. The amendment encompasses too much that involves the Hartshorn property and large boat basin. The changes to the Adelaide Point part of the property I'm all for, but unfortunately they must be voted on together. So I'm asking you from the bottom of my sailor's heart to please vote no on the amendment tomorrow, as it's just too unclear and vague as far as the large boat basin. Thank you.
Thank you for your time, Mr. Allen. Appreciate you joining us tonight. Do you have any other comment forms received? Do we have anyone on the phone?
We do not.
All right. Well, then I would entertain a motion to adjourn our meeting.
So moved.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's at the end.
Yeah.
So I need a motion to go into closed door session. Do you have a specific language
Yep.
for it?
I
Oh,
have a motion.
Rebecca's on top of it.
We're gonna need two
Commissioner
motions.
St. Clair.
We're gonna go in and come back out, and back in again.
And back in again.
All right. I move to go into closed session to consider material exempt from discussion or disclosure by state or federal statute, specifically being an attorney-client confidential communication.
Support.
We have a motion by Commissioner St. Clair, supported by Vice Mayor German. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Emery?
yes.
Commissioner St. Clair?
Yes.
Mayor Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Hood?
Yes.
Vice Mayor German?
Yes.
Commissioner Gorman?
Yes.
Motion passes.
That's what you better do.
All right. Closed door we go.